Hey there, Internet. Welcome back to What's the Points? I'm Mike. So today I wanted to do a little check-in on American Airlines status versus Alaska status, doing a little update to my video I did a month ago. And what I was talking about at that time was announcing the changes that Alaska has made to its mileage plan for next year, 2025. And the opportunity that it represents for those of us who are interested in status but are not business travelers. So, quick recap of the previous video. Basically, to those of us in the know, American Airlines has made it easier than any other airline to get status for non-flying spend. And in particular, shopping through their shopping portal, or the dining portal, or even AAdvantage hotels. So I've been able to now just short of hit Platinum Pro status for next year. One is racking up lots of AA miles, which are valuable, especially for booking partner flights in business class to either Europe or Asia. Well, Alaska has many of those same benefits and has miles that are arguably worth just as much. And that could change. I mean, all of this could change, but if you take Frequent Miler at face value on their prediction, and so far with regards to the merger with Alaska and Hawaii, they've been pretty on the money with what's been going on in this space. And in particular, their next prediction is that the pipeline, the short-lived, what will probably end up being a short-lived pipeline for transferring your Amex membership rewards points to Hawaii and then on to Alaska, that they're going to shut that off pretty soon as they can. We recently discussed this a little bit on the Stack Your Points podcast, link in the description below. And, so I think everyone's kind of on board with this. And so where I left the last video was I was considering whether I was going to speculatively transfer a lot of miles or a lot of MR points from Amex to Alaska. And I did that. I actually moved over 300,000 points. So now I'm sitting on a much bigger stash of Alaska than certainly that I'll be able to use up next year. And so the question in particular that I'm revisiting is, should I change my strategy from pursuing AA status, or in particular requalifying for AA status for 2026 to Alaska? The summary that I came up with last time in terms of why I was not thinking I was going to switch, why indeed it would probably be better to stick with AA, was that the ease of earning, at least through non-flying spend, the ease of earning status dollar for dollar without having investigated whether the offers, let's say through the shopping portal. Most of my miles I've gotten through the shopping portal, and a decent amount through dining, and a much lesser amount through hotels in summary. And yeah, some from flying, but honestly not that much. Dollar for dollar, you're going to hit status faster on AA, assuming, of course, that we see the same offers through Alaska's shopping portal. And that's live, right? But what is not live yet is that in addition to earning Alaska redeemable miles, that you will also earn EQMs towards status, their loyalty points. And so why am I thinking of changing my mind? I've been fishing for feedback on Reddit and on Flyer Talk forums. And, there's no clear consensus, but one of the points that stuck with me, albeit from someone who admittedly is probably flying Alaska more than I am, is sure, you might be able to hit AA status more efficiently, and in doing so, use the the partnership, leverage the partnership that AA has with Alaska in order to get your AA status recognized on Alaska for those benefits. That opinion was, well, if the reason you're doing this is to get that benefit on Alaska, you're flying Alaska more than you are American, which is my intention. And indeed, flying out of SFO is my home airport on the West Coast. There generally are more options in terms of just total routes, total flights with Alaska. And I prefer their product. So, if you're interested in Alaska, why not just get status directly? I don't see why you would bother. And so what hit me about that is that it wasn't necessarily a mathematical argument, right? And it kind of brought me back to, a point that I often make in the points and miles game, which is, like most things in life, is a blend of art and science. And suffice it to say, with this kind of hobby, you can't be overly scientific. There's always going to be some uncertainty that you just can't account for numerically. And so, not to say that you should just go based on emotions and feelings, but there's an inherent degree of gambling in this in terms of not knowing. And so how do we respond to that? I don't know if we can quantify numerically the advantage. It's kind of like a convenience thing. So I'll give one quick example. You go into Alaska and you book a flight. By default, the frequent flyer number that's going to populate on your ticket, of course, is Alaska. And you can use the chat feature to change it to American. And why am I not remembering? I can't remember if you can actually change it during the booking process. I'll have to get back to you on that. But I've been booking mostly cash fares with Alaska recently, and some mileage, some award fares. And in all of those cases, I've had to go into the chat feature and change the frequent flyer number. And that's not a hard thing to do, but it is just sort of one more thing. And each of these little things kind of adds up. And so, it comes back to, what are we getting status for? Is it just to increase the likelihood of getting an upgrade? I don't think that's ever something that we can really, bet the farm on. I think that we need to be able to feel like we're getting some additional benefit from the status beyond just the chances of getting free stuff. What we're hoping for is that we're going to have a better experience. Maybe part of that better experience is getting priority service. And part of the question inherent in that is, do we need it? So, for example, with AA, I can't honestly tell whether or not I'm getting any kind of priority service. Maybe I am, but at a minimum, I know for sure that you don't get a dedicated support phone number unless you're at their top tier status, executive platinum. But because the advantage, the incremental difference relative to the amount of loyalty points that are required to get to that top tier, the juice isn't really worth the squeeze on that, to quote Sebi. And so because Platinum Pro is the sweet spot, if you're not a hardcore road warrior and can organically get that status anyway, then therefore, for my use case, I'm not expecting to get priority status. Now with Alaska, I'm not sure if that's any different yet. I'm still learning about the program, but it would seem to me that getting support, whether by phone, and honestly, I haven't even had to call them yet, but the support through the chat has been excellent and is better than any other domestic airline that I've used that feature for so far, without it even being close. And that's including Delta, which generally has really good service. And so because of that, you could make the argument, well, Alaska already has good service. Do I need to have that be upgraded? And, the short answer is no. I don't need this. I don't need status. And really, to boil it down, there's a lot of wisdom in the thought that you should just book the seat you want. And if you're booking a first class seat with most airlines, in general, you're going to get most of the perks that you would get from status anyway, sort of rendering that moot. Is that true, though, necessarily? I don't know. Like, for example, does it include easier access to service? Or particularly when there is so-called irregular operations. There's nothing more stressful than when your trip goes sideways and you need to get a hold of an agent quickly. Any little advantage that you can get, any little difference in helping you to fix what's going on and get rebooked and get that fixed is going to make a huge difference. So anything that increases the odds of that happening, to me, has value. If that's going to happen with Alaska, and I don't know that it will, then that could change the value proposition. So that's reason one. Perhaps better access to priority service. Reason two is earning Alaska miles instead of AA miles. Now, why would I want to do this if currently, arguably, AA miles are still worth a little bit more? Well, frequent miler, if they've been pretty right up to this date regarding the changes with Alaska, and they're predicting that AA is overdue for a devaluation, whereas Alaska is not, because they've only recently announced all of these different changes, including revisions in this last year to their award chart. So they don't see any real major changes coming to Alaska anytime soon because of that. Nothing's ever guaranteed in this hobby or in life for that matter, but I think that's, if you're going on that prediction, and that's all we can really do, but we have to, because we know things will change, and we need to have some sort of strategy in place, I believe, if we're going to be getting to this level of dedication in this hobby, then you could make the case that Alaska miles are more likely to hold their value. So in my case, even though I already have a lot more Alaska miles because of this membership rewards transfer, even despite spending a whole year now putting a tremendous amount of effort and energy into earning AA miles, as well as the status points that come from that. It's a little counterintuitive, but maybe not if you consider that Alaska miles are more likely to hold their value. And finally, the third reason why it might be useful to accumulate Alaska miles instead of AA miles right now is because of what I consider to be the biggest change in the Alaska mileage plan program for next year. Even bigger change than adding shopping portals and other non-flying spend to the ability to earn EQMs towards status. Even bigger than that is earning EQMs now through all award travel, including on partner flights. And so, if I'm able to start building up an even bigger stockpile of Alaska miles, now all of a sudden the status game, maybe that shifts the equilibrium and makes it a little easier and makes up for the lesser earning of status per dollar, And so if that's the case, and of course this is always the caveat with this, I'm able to fly enough to take advantage of that. That could tip the scale. And so therefore there's all the more reason to consider that possibility and make it easier overall to earn status if I'm flying a sufficient amount. Now, the question that I'm going to leave myself and others with here is, what is that sufficient amount? Without getting into specifics, my prediction so far, at least for next year, is that I do not think that I'll be flying a sufficient amount on Alaska metal in 2025 in order to justify that scale tipping. However, if I'm looking ahead to the year after that, and maybe even 2 years after that, I think there's a possibility that I could. And so therefore, that would be a motivator for switching now. The major reason for not switching would be I'm already enjoying AA status. And unless I do a status match challenge, which the status match challenge, because it can only be done by miles flown, is going to be tough. And I believe I would need, in 3 months, I would need 20,000 miles flown to get the equivalent to MVP Gold 75K to the American Airlines Platinum Pro. Say that 5 times fast. American Airlines Platinum Pro status. And so because of that, I don't see myself doing that. Point being, I'd kind of be throwing, there's kind of arguably an opportunity cost to starting over, as it were. Because if I'm going to earn Alaska status on my flights for next year, then that means I need to put my Alaska frequent flyer number in the booking. And therefore, I will not enjoy the benefits of AA status. So that would be a little bit of a sacrifice. And so the question is, well, what should I do if I'm going to do that and just sort of eat that loss? Is it really a loss? I mean, I've put a tremendous amount of work into it. But the advantage is that those AA miles aren't going anywhere. So those will hopefully keep some value. And we could just do this train in reverse. I could book AA flights and change my frequent flyer number on those flights to be Alaska and get that Alaska status recognition. But for a certain period of time while I'm trying to earn Alaska Airlines status from scratch, I would be missing out on that. So that's what I have to, is it worth that, whatever that period of missing out is, if it's going to benefit me in the long run? I don't know the answer to that yet. But the whole reason I'm bringing all this up now is I'm actually thinking of transferring even more miles to Alaska. And the only reason I feel comfortable doing this is because I know that at a minimum, even if their award chart changes and they devalue, at a minimum, I'll still always be able to redeem Alaska flights. And honestly, a lot of Alaska metal is not that valuable with regards to using your Alaska miles. Just like any other domestic redemptions, for the most part, on most airlines, you're not going to get tremendously great value with, outside of a few specific cases. And so that's fine. So to me, there isn't much risk there because they're already not super valuable for that use case. And, if I can earn status this way through using redeemable miles, then this is a game changer. And then I don't have to think as much or be as tempted to spend cash on these fares in the first place. And, honestly, if I'm going to keep earning MR points at a faster rate than I know I'm going to be able to take fancy international trips, then I don't mind. I don't mind that speculative, because it's less speculation if it's a domestic carrier that I know I'll ultimately be able to use it on. It's not like I'm speculating on a transfer to Virgin Atlantic or to an Avios program, right? It's something that I know that I'll have a lot of flight options out of my home airport. And, I just want to make sure that I'm leaving enough points in general that I'll be able to fly on non-One World Alliance carriers. And, can I do that? Yes, I can do that. Right now, I've seen some pretty good no lifetime language links floating around out there, particularly on the business cards for earning lots of membership rewards points. And so if you have a fair amount of spend to use, that's a pretty good way to do it right now. And meanwhile, all the status stuff, it's all gravy as far as I'm concerned, because I'm stacking points on purchases that for the most part, I am having to do anyway. And so that's where I'm at. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below. If this was helpful to you, you know the drill. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and join in the fun, and let me know if what your plan is for all of this, and if you have any thoughts on these changes with Alaska and switching status. What would you do, assuming that you would even be interested in status? Love to hear your thoughts. Take care.